Yo, everybody. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr., rocking live from sunny South Florida, and it is actually sunny today. We've had on and off thunderstorms whipping through as the Atlantic. We're having what the locals like to call a fish storm, in that the hurricane has curved north before hitting land and apparently threatening our northeastern friends and allies, but South Florida, or Florida as a whole, almost completely unaffected, except for the fact that we have certainly got a little bit of rainwater. I want to thank our sponsors, the Rock Wallet people, the folks behind rockwallet.com, the people that give you the completely non-custodial access to your keys for your Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Ethereum, various Ethereum-based stablecoins, and money, MNEE, the money token, the gasless token of everywhere, the BSV ecosystem and beyond. It's funny, every time I talk to people about stablecoins, if they have any context on what stablecoins are, and I let them know, like, I can send a penny and you can send that penny right back to me. I'm like, yeah, but what's the gas, right? Like, they want to know because they've done something on ETH or Polygon or somewhere, and they understand that you need a little bit of the extra. And I said, no. It is itself a sat. It is bundled together. You can send it right back to me. That penny is your gas, and it's all going to work out. And then we usually hug, and the world's a better place for it. So good times, everybody. Thanks to the Rock Wallet people, and which are mostly the same people as the money people. So we appreciate you. I also want to thank the Otherworldly TCG folks for kindly continuing to support the show. They will be giving away a whole deck of Champions TCG cards, or Otherworldly. The name change. They've been through 3 name changes in like a year and a half. So the Otherworldly TCG folks are so kind to give away an entire deck of cards to the question or comment of the day on the show. So please make sure you are sitting at your desk and typing out all of the stuff necessary to win those cards. You will need a hand cash wallet to receive them. Thank you to the Otherworldly TCG folks. I want to remind everybody, I have a bounty up. That's right. I am paying for information. And it has actually been, it has been bolstered. I was offering 5 BSV, which is like $150 or something like that. For anybody that can make me a super cool killer Kurt clip show, that does not have to be the name of it, but I want to basically put together like a hero highlight reel. So like, this is Kurt Wuckert Jr. Bam, like 90 seconds of the really cool stuff. And if you create the best one, you will win that prize. But I have also had a number of other people say, hey, we will jump on this with you. So I think the prize pot is up to 10 or 15 BSV now. So if you make the best Kurt clip show, you get 15 BSV out of the deal, and that would be that's not bad, right? So good little chunk of money out there for you. But just make it, tag it, and then the cool part. This is, at least I think, is the cool part, is I don't want total rights on it. Like, I also want to make you popular. So if you're a really good content creator, I want to share in it. I want to let people know who you are. So I am paying you, and I am taking no rights to the media. I want to be able to use it, but I want you to use it as well. Share it on your channels, and then go ahead and make reels and clips and whatever else. And this can be for anybody that wants to do these. And maybe we'll turn this into a broader strategy for doing that kind of stuff. But I also want to thank you, sane people, my army of sane people, for pushing to get me onto more and more of these podcasts. I was on the Hotep Jesus podcast last Friday live, going hardcore with the Hotep Nation, and now I got people trying to get me on the Jake Shields podcast, which is among the spiciest podcasts in the space lately, because he is he's asking all the questions, so it's pretty good stuff. But he wants like crazy, controversial, and whatever. So we're pushing for that too. So let him know that, hey, he should have me on, and we'll talk about how Bitcoin was hijacked, and all that'll be pretty cool. I also released an article today. It is currently my pinned post. I am now giving away business ideas because I've had a lot of them over the years that I think will be really cool in the blockchain space, like the things that we actually need done, right? Like, hey, this would be a killer business for the blockchain. And I'm so sick of saying it and talking about like, hey, do you want to do, like, I have too much to do, so I'm giving away business ideas. It's actually something I saw Gary Vee start doing a number of years ago. He just gives away business ideas. And he's like, I'm in a room full of entrepreneurs. What do you think the odds are that one of these will actually turn into a thriving company? And then he likes to joke that it'll be none of them because there's a million good ideas and not a lot of people willing to work for them. So let's prove them wrong. Let's take their really good ideas and turn them into cool businesses. But I talk about taking your genetic data and turning it into a tokenized asset, real world assets on the blockchain. And what's cool about this is you can get all kinds of really great benefits for doing it, both from a security standpoint and also for your own health. And then you can monetize your own genome. And the reason, not everybody, but lots of people have genetic anomalies that make them predisposed to live extra long, or you might have some resistance to a disease that is killing lots of people in some other place. And so you can actually sell that data for scientific research and the development of CRISPR methods, specialized vaccines, et cetera, and you get to maintain your pseudonymity, anonymity, complete privacy, or whatever else because you're using a technology that is fundamentally private. And so I've been pretty pumped about this idea for a long time. It's something that I've been talking about in the blockchain space for a long time, and now I kind of mapped it all out. And if you're work in medical research, biotech in some way, like if you can start to get any of this done, I'd be happy to explain to you how the token part works and the Bitcoiny stuff works, but turn this into a business. Like it's billions of dollars. The 23andMe people are like spinning up a side company because their data is all, kablooey in their bankruptcy, but it's a whole bunch of things. But that's why you come to CoinGeek for tech talk you can trust, is what I'm being told are the things that I'm supposed to say. So we can cha-ching that one right there. Check that box, everybody. Tech talk you can trust. And I bet I could say it 3 times faster than anybody else could even conceivably say it. So tech talk you can trust, tech talk you can trust, tech talk you can trust. Bam! Kurt Wuckert Jr. did it. Anyways, this is the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. We're going to play an ad. We're going to come back with Crypto Spartacus, who is, if you're one of the people paying attention, one of the most authentic, normal guys in the universe. I think there's this meme that A, we all work for Calvin, or B, we're all sock puppets, or C, like we're all just crazy people. And I think there's a whole lot of evidence that we're just the sane people, which is why this is what I call my audience now. The sane people tune into the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream to talk about BSV, and Mr. Crypto Spartacus is one of those people. So we're going to play the ad from Rock Wallet, and we will be right back. Mr. What's the right way to say your name? Is it Horbay? How do we say this?
Just the way it looks, Horbay.
Horbay. All right. Some of these, you're Canadian, right?
I am, yeah.
So the question.
The last name is Ukrainian.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Well, you get the French Canadian guys, and like I have a guy whose last name is, to me, I read it Hebert. He's like, Kurt, I'm in French Canada. It's Hébert. I'm like, man, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, just the way it sounds. Just the way it looks.
Good stuff, man. So, Chris or Christopher, what do you prefer?
Either one. Christopher.
All right. That sounds great. Let's start with your Bitcoin story. I watch your content. I actually really love your content because it's peaceful, it's authentic. Like you walking in the woods and having lucid thoughts about Bitcoin is like super refreshing to me. In the grand scheme of content production. Like, again, I said it in the intro, a normal guy having normal thoughts about Bitcoin, but I would love to hear what was your first introduction to Bitcoin? What did you like about it? What did you hate about it? And how have you ended up here? Let's hear your Bitcoin origin story, please.
I'm pretty like I can't accent. I'm not entirely sure where I heard about it first. I'm pretty sure that I heard about it through the Cummer meetings that I used to attend in Canada.
Hmm.
So I was just someone who used to attend these meetings for the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform. This was a citizen-led group in Canada that we tried to sue our government, the government of Canada,
Nice.
to reinstate the Bank of Canada to its original mandate.
Very cool.
So I kind of got a bit of exposure to, I don't know, just how the banking system worked initially. Like during the 2008 financial crisis, I got really interested in how our banking system worked, just because I saw that the impact banks messing around the market had on everyone's lives. So I kind of wanted to understand that better. It was something I didn't know a whole lot of, as being someone who's pretty much just fresh out of high school around those times.
Yeah.
And I think I was a university student when I got into how our banking system worked. So I was just a young man trying to figure out how the world worked. And I was fortunate that I discovered these people who were trying to sue our government. And a lot of those people were really at the forefront of all of that. So I think one of the guys had like a copy of the Bitcoin white paper at one of the meetings they used to have in Hamilton, Ontario.
Sure.
Someone had like a copy of it and they were showing other people and they were speaking about it really enthusiastically. I don't think I stopped and talked to him a whole lot, but I saw him talking with people and trying to sell other people on the idea that this was this great new thing. And I think from that, I went home and I looked it up and I read the white paper. So that would have been really early on, like right when it came out, probably in 2009 or so. But I didn't get it. I was not a tech person. My background was in biology. I went to university to study biology, so I was not a tech person by any means.
Sure.
All of the technical aspects of the white paper went completely over my head at that time. So, but I did get it stuck in my head that this was supposed to be digital cash. And I think I went to school a couple of years later, and I went to school to be a paramedic, and I completely stopped paying attention to all of that stuff. I mean, there's people like Jeff Berwick in Canada who were talking about it early on quite a bit. And I remember definitely hearing about it from him a lot, probably predominantly from him early on. But I completely stopped paying attention to that when I went to school. And then it was a few years later in 2015, I graduated and I started paying attention to things again. And I started getting interested in mining. So
cool.
From there, I was fortunate that I wasn't really paying attention during the Bitcoin Civil War. It was kind of something that I kind of paid attention to as a side interest, but wasn't really the focus of anything. I wasn't studying it to really understand it back then. I was just one of those guys who kind of followed the hype train of this shiny new thing.
Yeah.
And again, having the exposure from working in banking reform in Canada, I saw like the value of that. But it wasn't probably until 2019 or so that I really started to get interested in the space again. And with Bitcoin SV in particular, it was like with ordinals, when ordinals popped up on BTC, I was like, oh, this is going to have to change people's minds. Like when people start realizing that there's all these interesting things that you can do with Bitcoin, they probably start to figure it out. And it hasn't panned out that way.
It kind of did. It's funny because I had the same thing. Like ordinals popped up on BTC, and I said the same thing. It was like, they're going to get it. They're going to see why this is cool. And they're going to be upset that it doesn't work very well in BTC. And that happened. But then, now they're still bickering about it. Now it's the Knots war versus the core people and whatever. And it's like, guys, they're never going to let you have OpCat and all this other stuff on BTC. They're going to argue about it forever and they're going to kick you off the ship as soon as they can.
Yeah, I think there's certain people who see that though, and there's certain people now I think who that kind of snapped them out of the trance that they were in, and they kind of see through that there's a certain deception that's being had at a high level there that the general population hasn't really figured it out. I was expecting it to be more of a breakthrough, but I think there's always resistance.
It's a slow burn. I think. Well, it's interesting because I get. Every time I talk to normies, like people that even are outside the norm, like your libertarian types or even just separatists, they know something's wrong with the world. The government's screwed up. It's a weird bank state corporate fascist model or whatever that we live in. And I think there's a lot of people that intrinsically understand there's a problem. And then but it manifests itself in very different ways. You get the people who are like, I'm just going to vote for Trump. Trump's going to fix it all. And now all these people are, like, there is no Epstein list and you're not getting the Fort Knox audit. You're not, all these things that I think a lot of Trump people are like, man, we're finally going to do it. And then Trump's kind of reneged on a bunch of the really cool stuff that Trump was up to, and then kind of threw a couple bones to people. And now people are back like, now what? What do we do? And I love that your background story has to do with trying to sue the Canadian government, because that's the kind of stuff I was into similarly, like 10, 15 years ago, that kind of got me into Bitcoin too, is a little bit at this like end the Fed and some of the Occupy Wall Street sort of that group. Like there were a lot of antagonist groups, but it was the same thing. They're like, okay, so is Obama gonna fix it or what? It's like everybody, they get this big idea, they understand there's a big problem, and then there's like the solution that people start to walk toward ends up being like, well, guys, it's not actually going to fix the problem here. And I think even with BTC, you get those guys who are like, yeah, man, buy BTC, hodl. And then at some point, like, end the Fed and freedom happens. But like, there's no, like, what are those steps for people? And I just don't understand. I don't understand like where that disconnect is or why it exists. How do you think we get there? Like I always ask people, if you had like $1 billion and a magic wand, what would you do to really like knock people on the forehead and say, hey guys, like this is the path forward? Go.
I mean, personally, I would always say like countering the narrative is probably how I would invest my money. Just because I think like if you leave a lie unchallenged, there's like a great like danger in leaving a lie unchallenged. The problem is that these people who are lying about a lot of things, they're unchallenged, and it's not even that they're promoted. Like it's unfortunate that I think a lot of people, if you want to find out about Bitcoin now, you're going to find that like someone like Michael Saylor is going to be your first exposure. So you're going to have this charlatan who's setting your initial impressions about what Bitcoin is, what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to be used for, and how you're supposed to use it. So it's not the best situation just in generally for the crypto market, where if people want to come to the space from outside it and get informed, they're running into bad actors who don't really have their own interests in mind. They want to exploit the ignorance of those people. There's this education gap in lots of different sectors, and you'll find everywhere in society where there's a massive education gap between the average person and the experts. The experts often leverage their expertise and their knowledge over the ignorance of people who don't understand those things. And it becomes predatory. It's just a part of human nature. You find it in all different parts of society. And I think like those of us who are in the big block camp have done a poor job of countering the narrative. And especially because it's so ridiculous. I think like it's so easy to mock 7 transactions per second. And you don't do a good enough job of emphasizing just how ridiculous it is that they're trying to build the future of finance on blockchain that operates at 7 transactions per second. It's just, when people say outrageous things like that, they don't get challenged. There isn't someone who stands up and be like, how are you going to do that when you can only process this amount of transactions per day? Like you're going to congest the network, and what? Everyone's just going to pay an outrageous amount to make their transactions go through. And even then, you're just going to have people paying to get ahead. The transactions will still get congested.
Well, and it's funny because I'm one of those voices that has been saying the same thing since, I don't even know, 2016, 17. I think it's funny you said you sort of missed the Bitcoin Civil War era a little bit. And I was a little bit the same. I was trying to get married in 2015, so I missed like the beginning of it. Like I come back from like the honeymoon era and whatever, kind of get back into like crypto whatever in 2016 as Ethereum's starting to heat up and stuff. And I'm like, wait, like the idiots have won the argument and they're like in charge of things. And then it gets into like this, it's just insane to me. And it's literally, I haven't been able to shut up about it since, but
I had a really humbling experience actually shortly around that, like around the time of the Bitcoin Civil War, where I was working a shift with another paramedic who told me a bunch of like the details of this that I just was not aware of. And he was looking at me like I'm an idiot, asking me certain questions. And I was like, it struck me that, yeah, I was an idiot. I had no idea what I was talking about. And he really did. He actually really understood like the technical reason why you need bigger block size to allow the transaction
Right.
throughput. And like, I was like, oh shit, like there's something going on here that I'm not aware of. I'm going to have to like investigate this further and actually figure out what's going on here. So I was really lucky that someone like pointed out to me that I was following the hype train and not what actually made sense.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't someone who was paying super close attention. So that really prompted me to do that, to actually figure out what was going on, how this actually works, and to stop paying attention to people who just have like the appealing narrative. I think it's unfortunate that easy money has greater mass appeal than like hard fought freedom and like working for things to actually earn it. I think the psychological manipulation that's happened in the market has preyed on people's desire for easy gains and easy money.
Yeah.
And it's been easy to make people sell out in the crypto market. I think a lot of the end the Fed people, like it's weird to me that it was predominantly end the Fed type people who were in the Bitcoin space to start. Everyone that I knew for the first few years, I didn't know anyone who was into Bitcoin except for maybe some really like geeky tech who thought it was kind of cool technically. Like 95% of us were end the Fed, like Ron Paul, libertarian type people who really just wanted an honest form of money so that we weren't forced to work for the banking system that can create it from nothing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's very weird. And then especially because, you know, when you sit and explain the big block Bitcoin thesis, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And I can't tell you how many people I've actually kind of red pilled on that. And they're like, yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense than this BTC thing. And so I always, and even still, like to this day, I'm like, look, if I just keep telling people and they keep telling people like this will get its own legs, because it's just the most basic, accurate way to handle the tech and the incentives and all this stuff. And like, you have to have all these weird schizo conversations that even make BTC work from a narrative standpoint. But I think you're right in that it's so much easier to pitch the easy money. It's like, especially because of the price, they're like, look, man, I bought some 3 years ago at 40 grand or 50 grand or whatever. Look at me, I've doubled my money. And you know, and so that just becomes the whole story for the kind of people that are like, look, man, I work 40 hours a week and commute for another 15 hours a week. I mean, I don't have any friggin' time. Like, I'm barely paying my rent or my mortgage or whatever. And so it just kind of has become this maybe opportunity to get out of the rat race by becoming rich. And I think that's kind of the spin on it, like more freedom and, you know, no longer being a slave to the system. It's been turned into, yeah, we're not gonna burn down the banking cartels or any of that. But if you're just a lot richer, that's you being more free. And then I think it gets its own legs from there. And I get why it's an easier sell. But what's your experience like in your real life? It sounds like you have a friend or a colleague who's a big blocker. Do you do meetups? Do you talk to more people? Like, when, you know, if you're explaining Bitcoin to people in real life, how many people just tell you, no, you're just wrong, Chris? Or do people just jump in when you explain it to them well?
I actually find that it's easiest to get through to people who have like almost no exposure to the space. So if you go and you introduce someone who's like a complete no coiner who knows very little, they're more receptive to what I'm trying to tell them about the space, because if you introduce utility to them as the selling point rather than price speculation, it adds this kind of depth to the conversation that isn't happening elsewhere. So like, wait, you're telling me we can do all these other things? It's not just gambling on the number going up or down and how much people are putting in at any given time. I think the problem is that there's like this cognitive dissonance that people experience where they have their expectations set by people like Michael Saylor. And that's the idea. They get the idea that this is what everything is about from people like that. And it's not really breaking through for us. Like, I think the problem with the big block camp is that we haven't been louder. We've kind of taken a defensive position as well, where I think we've taken this stance like we should be the ones defending ourselves, which is outrageous to me, because we've got something that will actually work. We should not be in a defensive position in the BSV. I think it's just one of those things where the price, and like, oh, the market has decided because the price is this. Okay, well, how much of that is tether manipulation? How much of that is price suppression? How much of that is just people playing games with the market and all the different ways that you can manipulate the market if you have an infinite money printer through either fiat or something like Tether to play around with the market. So I would always say that like it's been a fault of the BSV camp to be so defensive in our position. We should be more attacking the small block camp, because again, if we just mocked it and ridiculed it more, I mean, when people in these small block camps make these outrageous statements about how it's the next financial system, if there was like a mob of people on all of their posts that they're making saying this is outrageous, how is this going to work when you can't put there's not enough throughput in your blockchain to make any of that functional, people would start to figure out, if like you saw all of these people calling out their bullshit every time that they say it, because it goes so unchallenged. People aren't challenging the lie. So I mean, if I had $1 billion and a magic wand, I would probably devote a lot of my money and effort to challenging the lies in all of these different sectors of society where I think there's a knowledge gap, where people exploit the ignorance of other people.
Well,
it's exploitative. It's kind of cruel. And then the sense of like finance, it's grown to such a I would honestly think that if you look at the people who established the Federal Reserve System or these central banking systems, they probably didn't think it would last 100 years. They probably thought we're going to have to like run away with this in like 10 years, and then people are going to figure it out and we're not going to be able to get away with this. But then they figured out how to like manipulate people to keep the system going. And I think that really is why you had people like Aldous Huxley in the 30s warning about the type of like scientific management of the human mind that I think, I mean, that was almost 100 years ago that he was warning about that. If you look at how like the science in those fields has advanced, and now you have AI that can track everyone and use all that data that they're collecting from social media to really manipulate where people's attention is going. I mean, it becomes very easy for people who control the social media algorithms to make sure that something doesn't trend or to make sure that it does.
No, that's it is. It's fascinating to see. You know, Huxley's such a good example. I wrote recently about like Meyer Lansky and some of these people too, who are like super into social engineering in like the 60s and 70s as well, and just like then their work turned into like MK Ultra, and then that turned into, you know, the CIA, you know, claims that these programs went away, but they really just got bought by Silicon Valley firms who are like, oh, okay, well, the US government can't use mind control anymore. You want to come work for our company in the marketing department? And so we've got like, you know, the same terrible malfeasances, but just being used at the corporate level to keep people hypnotized into the kind of crap we do now, right? Like your Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Like, I'm doom scrolling and arguing with people about politics that don't actually matter, and all of this kind of stuff, instead of, you know, seeing the forest for the trees and realizing, like, holy crap, I built a prison that I'm living in, and there are ways out of it. Actually, if I were to just stop playing the game and move forward with just a little bit of like self-awareness about the nature of the prison. And man, it's just I don't know. I just find it so bonkers. And I'm always curious to hear like people who have sort of discovered the same thought pattern in parallel. Like you and I don't really know each other, but you know, I can, but you know, I see your post and I'm like, oh, Chris is right. Like, this is good information, you know, but it's fascinating to me how few people do the same thing, because they want to be part of the zeitgeist, or even worse, I think a lot of people even see what's bad or predatory, and instead of trying to free people from it, they want to keep the system going because they think that they might be able to be the people in charge of the prison if they play their cards right. And I think that's the even scarier part.
Yeah, I think that kind of plays into like the demoralization of it, where people kind of give up the idea of even like reaching for a higher ideal, where they just kind of accepted that this is the way things are and like we're not gonna get out of it. And I think there's like a lot to be said about what you said with the social engineering. Groups like the Fabian Society, that like they started like more than 100 years ago, like in the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. It's like the socialist movement started in the UK, where they wanted to infiltrate different groups within society and push social change by osmosis, by pretty much just infiltrating different groups that were influential and spreading their influence by latching on to other influential groups. And if you look at like what their objectives were 100 years ago and how much society has changed and the way society has changed, they've been extremely successful in altering the way people operate in society. And if you look at some of the writing of the people who were part of that organization, they have like a way of looking at the human population almost like lab rats, where it's like, we're going to introduce this change and it'll cause this slow effect. It might take 50 years, but we'll have this change in people's behavior over the course of like a generation or two.
Yeah.
And it's scary when you think of what those people might be doing with all the data that they're harvesting through social media and stuff.
For sure. Well, it's, it's funny. I bring up Hegel, not a ton, but I'll bring him up and talk about like, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And this is like this very Fabian idea about like, okay, you have what is, so make a proposition that is preposterous, but if you force people to debate between what is normal and what is preposterous, they'll meet in the middle. So all of a sudden, preposterous, about half of it has become part of your base culture now. And so now you just do it again. You add, now what's preposterous in the next decade? And you keep moving it this way, right? So you keep creating like this destruction of what was. I tweeted, I don't even know, a month ago, and said, stop normalizing things, because it's normalization of weird ideas has been like this backdrop of the last 100 years of Western society, where we take preposterous and we start saying, but maybe there's something good about that. And then we debate it. So you get your conservative types who start saying, no, man, we're just not doing that. But you're talking about it, and talking about it, it starts to tell, like, your kids are listening, your neighbors are listening. It's like, I didn't even know that was an option. And so just the debate about it starts to put an earworm into people's heads that, maybe we should do crazy, preposterous thing. And now we live in this preposterous world that I think, the Fabian Society would be very impressed with how effective that they've been, frankly. And, to the point where you get like this underlying presumption that there is a goodness about hard left-wing thought or communist thought generally, or like, well, it's coming from a place of good intentions and all these things. And then, and then it's not even, it's just such a weird animal, because like that's where our mainstream government culture and universities and all these things have accepted the absurdity. And it's been to the severe detriment of all the things that actually built the fabric of society that makes society function. And I realize a lot of it, the folks watching the show are like, what does this have to do with Bitcoin? But ultimately,
actually, I have a good segue for that. I'll let you finish.
Take it. Let's do it.
I was just going to say that actually all of those things, they kind of they flow into technology as well. Like the way that you set up a grocery store, like where you put the products in a grocery store will affect how much each of those products get sold. If you put it at the bottom of the shelf, it's going to sell less than it's at eye level. It's very much like that with app development. The way you develop a user experience and how you develop an app, the way you lay out an app, where you place a button, even things like that, they have like a massive influence on how much people will use the application. If it's something that flows naturally, is easy to use, people will get hooked. You can design it in a way where the buttons are placed in a way that makes it addictive. You can style it like a casino game and make it seem like something that's addictive and familiar to people, and then they engage with it the way they do those familiar things. There's lots of different ways that you can apply psychology to app development, which is actually something that when I get bored with actually coding, I've been spending time like listening to audiobooks about app development and things like that, where you can use different psychological cues and just how you place buttons to design things in a way that'll make them either more addictive or again, purpose-driven design that applies to app development as well.
For sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about, what are you developing and why, like what are the key things about a scaled Bitcoin, BSV specifically, but a scaled blockchain system in general that allow for novelty the way that you see it? Like why bother with monetizing data, monetizing actions or those kind of things? Can you like walk me through that from the standpoint of an app dev, and therefore like somebody with a little bit of entrepreneurial sense and a developer mindset?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that you could apply the blockchain too. But there's certain things that I feel like it makes sense. It's a smart application for it. Things like citizen science, the thing that we're putting temperature data on the blockchain so that it can't be doctored after the fact. I think that's really, really smart application. I think we should apply that in other areas as well. I think things where during the pandemic, there were lots of people who had studies about what was going on that they couldn't publish. They wouldn't get places to publish their journals or their scientific literature. I think scientific literature publishing, having everything that is typically censored, using the blockchain as a platform to publish controversial subject matter or science, I think that's really smart, because then you can kind of circumvent the centralized gatekeepers. I think that'll be a good selling point for blockchain in the future. I think there's a lot of different gatekeepers and a lot of different industries, and there's a lot of people with an interest in adopting blockchain, but they don't realize that it's a solution to their problem because they mostly hear about it from people like Michael Saylor instead of, I don't know, the big block camp. So they're not realizing there are these technical solutions to real world problems. And I mean, that's really where my focus is. The thing that I'd like to start out with, there's a couple projects that I'm kind of working on that I'm willing to talk about. One of them is just citizen science for psychedelics. I think it's one of those things where 10 years ago, when I talked to paramedics about MDMA therapy or psychedelic therapy for treating post-traumatic stress disorder, people looked at you like you had two heads on. And there's a lot more acceptance of that now. There's been a lot more mainstream acceptance of it, mainstream discussion about that. I think it would be wise of those of us who are building in the blockchain space would be wise to kind of hop on certain bandwagons that we think are going to explode in popularity. I think that's a sector that for a lot of different reasons will grow in the healthcare sector. You'll have a lot of different and a lot of investment into that space as well, because it's like a new field within medicine that's, again, because of centralized gatekeepers, been closed off for a long time. And I think opening that up is going to bring a lot of investment with it. And it's something where I think it's a good way for BSV to kind of hop on the popularity of other things, make something like Arrowhead, where people have like reports of their own personal experiences with these things and have it kind of documented on chain. That could be a smart way to coast on the popularity of other things that are going to become more popular in the future. So I think I would like to develop things that are going to become popular. I mean, something where like there's already an interest in something else, mix it with blockchain and do it in a way where people don't even care. Like they don't even really care that the app is using the blockchain. It's a good app and it serves a purpose.
Exactly. It's funny. So I'm in the middle of writing a series. I put the first one out today about genetic data, because your data is out there in somebody's database right now, and you should own that data and be able to sell it or lease it or whatever, like to your own benefit. And right now it's just, whatever. You get 23andMe selling it to who knows who and whatever. But my next one was kind of based on that. I'm super into like biohacking and CRISPR and peptide therapy and, anything like that. Like we're looking at, testosterone of the average male is like 50% of what it was just 30 years ago. And so the question is, well, why? And then what's the impact of that? And it could just be like, everybody's balls are full of microplastics or something just because everybody wore too much polyester. Or it could be like totally predatory, purposeful, like, well, if we just lower everyone's testosterone, they'll be more docile and they'll be easier to govern, right? And so it's another one of those things, like you mentioned weather data or COVID information or whatever, where it's like, who has the real data? I don't even know. Is global warming real? Is it fake? Like, both sides don't want to trust each other. And it's like, well, you're funded by the UN or Bill Gates. And the other side's like, well, you're just funded by big business or big shipping companies or whatever that just want to pollute the universe. And so we can't trust each other's data, but allowing that data to be stored and tracked on chain in a way that everybody can audit, it lets you just see like, hey, here's the real data. Like, make of it what you will, but the data is not manipulated. And then you can start to maybe depoliticize it just a little bit. But that's I hate the magic thumbs up. I don't know how to turn that off. But my next article, I want to talk about exactly that kind of thing. Like people reporting, you mentioned MDMA, things like people doing like ketamine therapy is another one that like 10 years ago, people were like, isn't that for like cat surgery or something? And now like you can go to totally mainstream psychology and like microdose ketamine to have like these breakthrough therapy sessions with like legit doctors who, it's not weird fringe science anymore. So you're right in that it's starting to go that way. But it would be really good to sort of decentralize the research, like let normal people research on themselves if they desire to, and then let that data be shared globally so that we can all learn.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about healthcare stuff. I think there's like a real threat right now where there's a giant push within healthcare globally to digitize health records.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's going to be this huge push to extract that data and then essentially just use it, harvest that data in a way where people probably, I mean, if you explain to people how our data is harvested and sold from social media sites, people don't really like that. I mean, your healthcare data, do we really want systems built that way where powerful interests can extract that data and use it in different ways? And it's like you said, like it's very concerning to me that there isn't alarm bells ringing about the decline in male testosterone.
Yeah.
To me, that signals that the gatekeepers see this as a problem and they're allowing it. Like me, as someone who's studied health and medicine my whole life, it's alarming to me that we've allowed this to go on without a massive public like awareness campaign or some sort of massive coordinated effort to counter this. It almost really seems like either they want some sort of decline in population or just to make people more docile.
Yeah.
And there's certain things where I understand that, I don't know, pesticides are used because they make farming significantly more efficient, but there's ways around that. Now we didn't have robots that could pick weeds out of crops, and we probably don't need to use all those chemicals anymore, but there's a business model that has to be replaced slowly over time. And I think that much like Bitcoin in certain industries, changes have to be kind of slow. You kind of have to absorb. Industries can only absorb a certain rate of change, otherwise things collapse. So there's like a controlled transition phase where you have to kind of phase things out just from an industrial standpoint. And it's really unfortunate that we've structured so much of the world around how our economic system works that like we'll continue poisoning ourselves for a generation or two and damage our young men just because it's in like our financial interests to phase things out gradually so it doesn't have like a catastrophic impact on whatever we're doing. And
no, it's hard.
I think just looking at things that way too, I think that's also why I'm optimistic for BSV. I think eventually over time, people don't want to poison themselves. And eventually they're going to realize that they've been allowing themselves to be poisoned. Their minds are being poisoned against their own interests, that they're choosing to finance systems that are never going to work to benefit them. They might make you some extra fiat, but you're still stuck in that fiat system.
Exactly.
And my own personal interest in what I want to do in the space is kind of direct things back towards like a society that works in the general interests of the average person. We've kind of all been hijacked and we're all kind of working towards the interests of what Wall Street bankers really want for society. And they don't want the same society that the rest of us want. And I think it's there's this bold push by people like the World Economic Forum to say, oh, you're going to own nothing and be happy. Like it's a bold thing to say that to 8 billion people who don't share your interests. And I don't think it's going to end well for those people. I really think that like it's outrageous that they think that they can control society to the extent we're like in all these different countries. In Toronto, the biggest city in Canada, we have all these major cities that have signed on to climate initiatives where they're going to tell you can only have meat a certain number of times a year. And again, if I warned people about things like that being planned 10 years ago, but now it's on government websites. So I feel like there's been this massive shift. I think I was someone who was into the privacy space early on because I found out that the government was spying on me in 2012 when I applied for my firearms license. And nobody believed me when I even told them. Like I had a over the phone interview and like an in-person interview with this RCMP officer, and they asked me if I they asked me all these weird questions. They're good cop, bad coping me, but they wanted to interview my father and my girlfriend at the time as well. And
Yeah.
it was weird to me, but they ended up asking my dad what my political views were, and they asked my wife she's my wife now. They asked her if I thought I was a free man on the land. And essentially, that was just a group that I had been researching. It's like a sovereign citizen movement.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, makes sense.
But essentially, they told me that they were spying on me and what I was looking at online. And in 2012, if you told people the government was watching what you did online, it's like you were a crackpot, foil hat wearing conspiracy nut. Like, I think there was actually people who cut me out of their lives because they thought I became like a paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Because until Edward Snowden came out with those revelations in 2013, it was a conspiracy theory that the government was spying on what you did online. And I've always kind of had this perspective because I was someone who found out about that like a year before everyone else, and really treated poorly by people when I told them about it. Like, they didn't even believe me because it was like, oh, you're a nutter if you believe that.
Yeah. Stockholm.
There's weird things that I've seen in society where like a narrative that people would have never accepted, like after the Edward Snowden revelations, it didn't stop government spying; it normalized it.
Right.
And I have this weird feeling about that. Like, this guy who came and revealed everything, like, it didn't stop any of it. He fled the country and everybody just accepted it. It was this weird thing to me because I thought for sure, like, oh, like once people found out that's what's going on, people are going to want this to stop. But it was the normalization of it that occurred. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of that's happened with things in crypto too, where like I know it's people like Daniel Krawitz. He said that like, he never thought that the big block camp would take off.
Yeah.
Or sorry, that the small blocker narrative would take off.
Right.
But then it just became normalized and it wasn't challenged. And it's just, you have this lie that becomes normalized and doesn't get challenged. And now you have all these people that are probably going to get hurt if that all collapses. I mean, I don't know how long they can keep this game going.
Yeah.
Well, but I also like what you were saying earlier, what you said earlier about how you thought that if everyone just kind of tells everyone that things would kind of eventually, the tide would eventually turn. I also thought that about the banking system in Canada 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we elected a central banker in our most recent election. So that is a lesson I think that has to be learned there, is that you have to be the louder voice. The louder voice is what wins. It's why Hitler kind of used that propaganda technique. If we repeat a lie loudly and often enough, it becomes the accepted norm.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I think that's why the BSV camp is on the defensive, where we're always kind of defending ourselves. And I don't think that is really even
shouldn't be
justified. It should be the other way around. And I think we need to flip the script on that.
What are some practical ways to mobilize that? Because, again, like that's how I live. I bring it up essentially every day, and that, it's like the cornerstone of my social media profile. But, how do you get more people to do that and do it effectively?
I think it's just amplifying the existing things that we're doing. So like I personally, like during the pandemic, I was like, I can't not speak out. I'm gonna like start making YouTube content or something like that. Like, I don't care. It'll just help my mental health to like challenge the lie, especially when I feel like it's something that's harming people, right? So it's just amplifying our efforts. I personally, I want to make a documentary about how our banking system works in Canada. That's kind of something I've got going on the back burner, because I felt like I've told every single person I've interacted with over the last 10 years, that every single person who knows me has gotten a lecture on that.
Sure.
It doesn't do enough. Like you need to get through to people in a bigger way, or like really spell it out to them in a way that they can't argue with it or play those mental games where like those cognitive dissonance.
I think a lot of people aren't sure what to do with it. Like, that's been my thing too. I explained like the history of the Fed and all this stuff, and hey, here's what happened at Jekyll Island, and here's all the like, here's what the IRS does, and here's why they're in Puerto Rico, and blah, blah, and like you get into it, and like it's compelling, it's interesting information, it's engaging, it's the kind of thing that's like fun to watch in a documentary and be like, wow, I can't believe all that happened. But then at the end of it, I think people aren't sure, like, well, okay, so what do I do about, like, I have a bank account at Chase, and do I pay my taxes at the end? Like, what? people don't really have a practical way to engage. And I think that's where it turns into, and I see this in myself, like I'll be explaining it to people and be like, am I asking you to like revolt? Like, I'm not even sure what to tell normal people to do about it in the first place, other than just, hey, like, I just want you to know. But what do you think? I mean, how can we give people tools to make even just one step in the right direction with some of that information?
Well, I think that's just it. Like selling them like a brighter picture for their future than the one that's being painted for them now, which I think is super easy. Like, if you look at everyone, if you ask people what they expect society to turn into within the next 5 to 10 years, people largely expect us to become this hyper surveilled surveillance,
Sure.
like a totalitarian society with AI and surveillance everywhere.
Yeah.
That's not really a future that, if you were designing a future for yourself, that you would design for yourself.
Mhm.
That's more like if you had everyone in society working for you and you wanted to keep it that way, the type of society that you would create, which again, I don't think people are going to go along with that. I think there's certain people who really want that, but there's so few. Like the average person, most of us don't want to live that way. It's going to be very hard to compel and force and brainwash people into accepting that.
Yeah. I think we're seeing a big backlash in general.
The thing that concerned me is that war would be the ultimate pretext for that. If you had especially a modern war between global powers, that would be the justification for, all right, everyone needs to have a digital ID now. Do we make sure that you're not some like enemy of the opposing force? Like that is, I think, the biggest threat that the people who have built up the existing system, I mean, they control the banks and the militaries of a lot of the of most of the planet now. So, I mean, they can make that happen if they want to. And I think it's empowering to us that we have blockchain. I think we've really misused it. I think the best-selling feature to get people into blockchain is that we can build systems that aren't controlled by the very wealthy who want to control all of society and craft it to their own liking at the expense of everyone else. Like, we can actually take power back that we've wrongfully been tricked into giving away. Like, I think a lot of this, I don't like pointing fingers at the elite more so, because I think that it's more of our own design that we've done this. Mm-hmm. They've really tricked us into giving away all of this power to them, and it's on us to take that back. And I think creating technologies that give that power back to people is like, that's really what I want to do, but it's also fairly threatening. There's certain things that I want to create on chain that I won't talk about. I'll just release it. And there's certain things, like even in outside of tech as well, releasing certain technologies that threaten established industries, it just won't happen. I forget that there's a certain law in the United States that allows them to pretty much classify patents. And I was someone who, when I was younger, I got really into magnetism and really interested in that. And I found that there were certain fields within physics that if you make a big discovery, you either have to stay silent about it and like play with certain intelligence agencies that kind of keep the lid on certain things, or people will just wind up dead. I know there's a lot of different researchers. Like,
I mean, I'm not surprised.
People who've made groundbreaking discoveries in like plasma batteries have a a suspicious rate of disappearing, or ending up dead under suspicious circumstances.
Right.
And I feel like blockchain publishing solves that as well. So that's something that if you could publish things like that on a blockchain in a way that they can't just erase it after, that's something that's an interesting idea to me. But it's, again, kind of threatening idea of the powers that be. So
no, for sure.
Well, I think eventually people will discover that there's a lot of things that you can do with blockchain that are threatening to the powers that be, and that's why they've crafted this massive casino to distract everyone with the appeal of fast gains, so that you don't get these ideas. You're just chasing fiat gains.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's man, like peer-to-peer finance, peer-to-peer like communication, peer-to-peer internet in total, like the entire internet functioning in a peer-to-peer system. And, you know, like all of these things are hugely disruptive. And I think you're absolutely right. Like that's why it's like, no, make lots and lots of money over here. Like, get a Coinbase account, like do the thing, like buy tokens, you're going to get rich. And you know, it's It is. It's like the testosterone problem, right? Like, how do we make these people more docile? And making them just a little bit more rich is a really good way to make them more docile. Because, I say, even myself, like I am very rebellious by nature. But now that I've got kids and now that I got a house, I'm a little bit like, if I get too spicy, it's going to start to become a problem where, if I disappear, then I've got to deal with the fact that, like, what wouldn't have been better for my kids to just have a damn dad? But then there's the flip side of that where it's like, but if I'm a coward about it, like, then what's the damn difference if I'm alive or dead for the sake of being a good influence on my children, And I think a Bitcoin truly scaled, it allows you to be a pseudonym and to publish things that anyone can verify. And, like you said, like, breakthroughs in technology and science and peer-to-peer publishing, and then the ability to chat on chain about it such that it can't be shut down even by your WhatsApp people and your Telegram people or whatever, because they can still shut off their exit nodes and all of that stuff. But no, I think it's very wise of you to point out and to notice that. Of course, that's the reason why things like BSV get suppressed, like a truly scalable peer-to-peer system that allows for the permanence of data. Like, yes, it's a massive threat to not just, this is why I always say, it's not just the bank. It's big tech, big finance, big government, big everything. Big everything gets disrupted by truly big Bitcoin. And it's terrifying. And actually, we have like 2 minutes left here in the show. So, what are your closing thoughts? Where can people follow you? Again, like the $1 billion in magic wand. Like, do you want 10,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel, or people following you on X? Like, where can people engage with you and start to have these conversations in a more abundant manner?
Yeah, you can follow me on YouTube. It's Crypto Spartacus on YouTube. On Twitter, it's Crypt Zero. So the O is a zero instead of an O, but it's Crypt Zero Spartacus on Twitter.
Love it.
But yeah, I don't know. My send off would just be that I don't know. Think for yourself, figure things out. Like, actually understand what you're invested in. If you're someone who's invested in the space, yeah, I think it's kind of a minefield of deception. Really, I think there's a lot of people that are just trying to deceive people into making money for themselves.
Right.
Telling people this idea that Bitcoin is going to be the next big thing. Like, I don't know. Just if you have to look at the market and look at what's popular, if you don't see it as like a giant joke that's been played on all of us for the sake of keeping down real institutional change, then like you're not really paying attention. Like,
yeah.
We've got to turn the ship around at a certain point. And I think it's incumbent on those of us who see that is what's happening to call out the bullshit and lies, because if it's not the people who see it that do that, it's just going to go unchallenged and remain unchallenged. So
yeah,
I like to call out the bullshit wherever I see it now. I think there are certain things where I let it slide for a while when I was younger, and the pandemic kind of just said, I'm just going to call it all out now.
Yeah, healthy, that's it. Like, if there's no other way to be free, then that's the best way to be free in a mad world that's built like a prison, is to just say, you know what, I'm going to tell you the truth to your face, no matter how much it sucks. So well, I appreciate that.
I'm someone who's done that for a long time, but again, like, just looking at things, we can all kind of just work out getting freedom for ourselves, but we're all just going to get backed into a cage eventually. So I kind of figured out a long time ago that, like, it's not the way forward to just get rich and like retreat to an island somewhere and, well, my family is comfortable, so I don't care that the rest of the world is a shithole. I don't want my kids to grow up in a world like this where most people are being coerced to give away an enormous portion of their lives to people who don't deserve it. And I definitely I don't want that to happen to my children, but I don't want it to happen to anyone else's children either. And I feel like if we all are just focused on looking after ourselves and our own children, we're all going to end up with this horrible system down the road where we're all kind of trapped in a system in a world that we would have never wanted for ourselves or our loved ones. So yeah, it's up to us to turn the ship around.
Love it.
I don't want like I don't want a big following of people. I think if I had that, I would probably stop making content. Because I kind of think fame makes you stupid.
No,
Like, I
you
think
know,
it's also just one of those things where once you have an audience, you kind of want to appeal to your audience. So I don't know.
sure. No, that's fair.
I'd probably change to a platform where it wouldn't damage me as a person if I got famous, or just stop.
It's an interesting point, especially, you know, when you got advertisers and all this stuff, and it's like, well, we don't want you to talk about this and that, and it is a weird conflict of competing interests where it's like, well, this has kind of become my career, and you know, then it's wild.
Yeah, like I think everyone should try to be a catalyst to a world that you actually want for yourself and your children. Because if you're not doing that, then you're doing it for someone else, and they're tricking you into building a world for yourself and your children that you definitely don't want for yourself and your children. So pull your head out of your ass and figure out what's going on, right?
Let's close on that. Chris, thank you for coming on. It has been refreshing, enlightening talk, and talking about a lot of the sort of the predicate, like this is the why for Bitcoin. And I think we don't talk about that enough. So very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of got caught in the wayside of everything else, unfortunately.
Yep.
But I mean, this is why everyone from the beginning got into it, which is sad. It's so sad that it's been swept by the wayside after so long. If you told me at the start of this that all of these end the Fed crypto people at the very beginning would completely sell out and just abandon everything for fiat gains, I would have never believed that. But I also thought 10 years ago that we would never elect a central banker today. So.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
It's wild. You got to figure out how the game is played. We're being deceived terribly.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Thank you. We gotta wrap. It's been real. Let's talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
So let's bang out. We got to do. We're gonna do the question of the day or comment of the day here, and let's talk. There's a few questions bouncing around in the troll box here too. So let's, Mr. Producer, as we choose a question, comment, blessing, cursing, or whatever of the day for the Otherworldly TCG card giveaway. Let's grab a couple of these questions. I'll answer them real quick. I see a few people asking about this 400 BSV fee and some of this other stuff that's bouncing around. So let's comment of the day, and we'll be back to take a couple questions and close it up. We got hello, Kurt from the Netherlands. Man, Bogdan, that was that's what we're going for a comment. But all right, Bogdan, reach out to Real CoinGeek on X here. We'll get you your Otherworldly TCG cards. And let's take a couple of these questions here, and then we'll wrap in 2 or 3 minutes. So let's what you got, Mr. Producer? So actually, I do. Do you know when Rockwallet will have finished corporate BRC 100? No, I do not. I don't know Rockwallet's development roadmap, unfortunately. I know it's a BIP. I always mix this up. Is it BIP 37 or BIP 39 based hierarchical deterministic key schema for developing or for generating new public keys from your private keys? And BRC 100 is like a newer way to do that. And I don't know what their path is, but I generally like the BRC 100 standard. And unfortunately, I don't know when that's coming. Ron, I see you having this conversation in the troll box. Rumors the 400 BSV fee was a backdoor bug and users contacting BSV to no avail. Is this true? So let me start by saying I have no idea. I can't validate that myself. I do know that the person who claims that it happened mentioned to Degan, reached out to Degan on X to discuss it. I haven't talked to Degan about it either. I know that he took his code repo down to double check how this could have happened. And I don't want to be accusatory, but just at a glance, looking at the transaction, so you can go see. I think it was Cuve Pool that all of a sudden had a 400 BSV fee in that block. And I looked at it, and it just looks like a very simple transaction, which strikes me as either somebody deliberately added it as the mining fee or somehow accidentally added it as the mining fee. But I don't see how it could have been done maliciously, given that I have some experience with the tools because I've had a lot of people reach out because they have cent B issues. So I spun up a CentB wallet, and then I have used various recovery tools to see, okay, how do they work? And I have seen nothing that looked like this. Now, I don't have any personal or business connections to the CentB people or necessarily to Degen or BSVA or any of these people necessarily, except for the fact that I have like personal relationships. Like I know who they are. We have comms. We work together when appropriate. But something about it just seems fishy, and it just seems like, in my opinion, kind of a perfect PR thing to be like, well, here's another problem to be scapegoaty about. I do know that Degen is trying to figure out if the issue was on his end with his code, and then ultimately, intends to reach out to the guy who says he was reaching out to BSVA and see if there's something that can be done to figure this out. But the other problem is that to validate what actually happened, you'd kind of need to have access to the other guy's private keys and some of these other things. Like you'd have to sandbox it and redo the exact same process that he did. And then there's a trust problem there. And so ultimately, I don't know. I know Degen real well, and he is a straight shooter and a good developer. And it's not a complicated piece of code that was created in order to do this either. So really anybody would be able to audit this. And I think it's very curious that, the kind of the typical enemies of BSV were very quick to have a whole breakdown. And here's why things like this happen on minority scam forks. And I don't know, doesn't pass my smell test. I truly feel for the person who, lost the 400 BSV, if that's what happened. I have seen people do this by accident when you build a transaction, especially in like command line interface and this kind of thing. If you're not super experienced and maybe you're unclear about what inputs and outputs go to what outputs as you're generating a new transaction, like it could have been a fat finger thing too. But I don't see any reason why it would have been a malicious piece of code or even an incompetent piece of code, because the code here that we're talking about is very simple. And so it seems to me it could be the kind of thing where it was, again, a fat finger from somebody who is inexperienced in doing these kind of things, or it's some kind of bug somewhere that I have not been able to reproduce myself, and I don't have any I've not heard anybody else say that they've discovered any such bug in looking through whatever the heck happened. So it's weird, but I don't see a reason necessarily to assume that it was malicious. Of course, unless you are a block streamer and you have every reason to pretend that everything that happens on BSV is malicious, which is exactly what happened, is that there was, immediate concern trolls out to explain why this is the kind of thing that we should expect to happen on the scam fork BSV. And so it just, I don't know. I don't like it. I have not been able to reproduce it, and I have had, it's got to be 100 people at this point ask me, what's going on with CentB? When's CentB coming back? How do I get my coins off of CentB? And I have tested some of these things. I have looked at the code on lots of these things, and they're all very simple. So it's, basically, I don't know, but there's something fishier than bad code going on here. And it strikes me as just another way to make PR to make people, afraid of BSV again. It's kind of how it strikes me. So let's take another question or two if we have them. I've been trying to get a hold of you, Kurt. Casey Atkins. So I did see this. This is actually one of the ones I wanted to bring up. Reach out to me on X. I don't I think your account is Casey Atkins on X as well. So I don't know why I wouldn't have seen your DM, but send it to me. I do check my DMs, and I'd be very happy to see whatever it is that you're doing here. Do you have original content, clips, etc.? So presumably Dave is asking about my bounty to create a, this is Kurt Wuckert Jr. hero reel. I don't have a ton of information in my own library. I kind of just let everything be out in public. But if you search my name, if you just go on like YouTube, for example, and type the name Wuckert and then filter by total views, you'll start to get like some of my biggest interviews. So it would be like the Hotep Jesus debate with Peter McCormick, me on the Patrick Bet David podcast, me on like Kitco News or some of the Fox News appearances and that kind of thing. And you can download that information, or you download those videos, and then yeah, so then take that information and you know, I just want somebody to create like a 60 to 90 minute clip that makes me look very, very cool. And not just for me. This is not for my ego. It's not for me to just share and be like, look at everything I've done. The point is that I get lots of people who say, Kurt, we really want to get you onto various podcasts. Like, how do we solicit them? And I think it would be a really good tool to have that information, you know, just to say like, hey, here's 6, 7, 8 really good clips of Kurt being Kurt on some other big shows, and here's why you might want to have him on your show. So it's for the community. I want the community to be able to grab here's Kurt Wuckert Jr. and paste it into, you know, when they talk about why I should be a guest on a podcast. So I want to crowdsource it for 2 reasons. I just want to generate stuff for creative people to do. I want to know who's creative out there and makes really cool stuff. And I also want it to be an opportunity for those creators to create their own content that includes stuff about me. So if we can sort of work in tangent with each other, maybe you could become my full-time or part-time content creation partner, and we can work together. So I think that would be a cool thing to do. So, all right, it's about 10 minutes after 3. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to do wet my whistle and have a little bit of lunch. Everybody, it has been an honor and a pleasure. I really, really appreciate you joining me on these shows every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I want to remind you to be good to each other, because if we can't be good to each other, then the rest of it is ultimately, you know, what's the damn point? And yeah, go out there, do something good in the world. Pray for your friends and be a friend. Be a good friend to everybody. And that's it. I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. I will see you next week. Goodbye.